There we are.
Live. I guess we are live. Good
Welcome
morning.
to the Festival of Storytellers. My name is Eleanor Cassetta, and I am your moderator this morning. ReadersMagnet has sponsored this unique event, which showcases the author and not the publisher. We are grateful and thankful for the management and the staff for all the work that they have done. And again, the event is designed for authors and not publishers. I am an author, and our author of the hour today is Wayne Scott Harral, and I will introduce Scott in a bit. We have a little bit of work to do here before. I am the author of 2 books. My first book is One Caregiver's Journey, which is about my 9.5 years of 24/7 caregiving for my mother. She fell and broke her hip at the age of 93 and passed away in my home at the age of 102. And my second book, which is the featured book of the Festival of Storytellers, is Generations of Good Food, which is a compilation of 200 of our family's favorite Italian recipes. I am live from Colorado, and just so happy for this event. I'd like to introduce Scott Harral. Scott's out of California. He has a bachelor's and a master's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in general business as well. He has made a career of providing management services in the rail industry throughout the United States and in the foreign country of Qatar. Scott has traveled extensively, having visited 38 countries, including an annual trip to the Italian Alps. His hobbies are numerous and varied, such as martial arts, flying, winemaking, and traveling. Scott is married, and he has 1 son and a daughter-in-law. Today's featured book and the author of the hour is Moonluck. It is likely in the coming decades there will be 1 or more active space station permanently located on the moon. And it is inevitable that human life will be taken by another human while people are living in the moon colonies. Will we be prepared for the time when that happens? Moonluck is a story of 30 astronauts living on the moon for extended periods of time. It's also a story of the astronaut scientists and the astronaut explorers as they grow plants on the moon, explore and find mineral ores, carry out experiments and research, and develop animosities as well as close relationships. When the base's senior-most member dies, and it appears to have been an accident, the story follows the trail to discover the actual perpetrator, leaving us with the question, is it murder if it happens on the moon? Before I turn it over to Scott, I'd like to ask all of the audience members to mute your screen, and please feel free to send chat questions to Scott or to send greetings to Scott, and we'll get to those later in the event. Scott, it's going to turn it over to you. Welcome so much.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Ellie. I appreciate it. I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and as indicated, I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top. Not an extrovert. Well, some of my friends might disagree with that, but I just don't talk about myself that much. I don't think, and it's going to be fun. I hope people don't mind. I am going to talk a little bit about me, but only because it's pertinent to how and why I wrote the book.
Tell us
And
about yourself. Tell us about
okay,
yourself and your career, and
all right.
give us a little history about Scott.
I will do that. If I may first, real quick, I did want to let people know that there is a contest. If they go to one of my booth shows, there's going to be 10 questions. If they answer the 10 questions, which will be revealed during this in my booth or on my personal website, scottharral.com, they're going to get a autographed copy of my book and this absolutely wonderful Moonluck ball cap. So I've advertised that. I can take it off. But that's out there. So I just want to make people aware that there are those 10 questions.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, about me. Well, I've had one thing I've noted amongst our various authors. Most of us I've seen so far are a little bit further along in life. That we don't I noticed very few young authors, and I think that's because those of us a little later in life have so much experiences that we bring this together, and it's our opportunity to bring together in our various novels, stories, books that we've been writing, and that's very true in my case. I started off. I went to the United States Coast Guard Academy back in the 70s. Graduated, became a Coast Guard officer with the engineering degree. But I did various things. I was even at the age of 22, I was on a Coast Guard cutter called the Venturous, U.S. Coast Guard cutter Venturous. And at 22, I actually made a drug bust on the high seas down towards Mexico. That case actually went to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Wow.
So that's something, a little something in my background that very, very few people know about. From there, and the reason for that was it was a question of whether or not there was an expectation of privacy on the high seas. And that question was what went to the Supreme Court. And ultimately, the United States prevailed. From there, I became a commanding officer of an isolated duty station in the Mediterranean. And I was, at that point, 24. Might have been a little young. Those were some life lessons that I learned that made me a much, much better manager and leader in my later career because of the experiences I had in the Coast Guard. So I thank the Coast Guard very much for that. Those experiences. They have made me what I am, and I think there's a few of my fellow Coasties out there. And good morning. I thank them for that. From there I went more mundane. They sent me to grad school. I got my master's in civil, and then I served as an engineering officer out in New York. I left the Coast Guard there. At that point, I got married to my wife, Italian born, although she lived here in the United States from the time she was 2. And our son was born in New York, out on Staten Island. It was a start of my travels. And, through my wife, who was very much liked to see the world, she instilled that in me, along with my experiences in the Coast Guard. And we started traveling a lot. We started going to Italy and other places, and we got our son along. In fact, we used to take our son every summer someplace, Germany, whatever. When he was 12 years old, something I will. He's not going to like me to say, but he said, "Do we got to go to Germany again?" So I think he knows now that what an experience that was. But now he loves it. I'll sidetrack. He's now married. His wife. They both love travel, and they've been now to Italy. Regrettably, we have inherited a home in the Italian Alps. My wife's father passed away, not from COVID, but it just happens. And so between her and her brother, we now have this home in the Italian Alps that we're going back hopefully in October to renovate. The newest part of that house was built in 1902. And again, having spent time, and I'm part of this is telling you a little bit about all these experiences that do contribute to my book. So, been going back to Italy for almost sometimes twice a year for last 30 some odd years. But also going to other countries as well. From there, using Italy as a base, we've hit every place in Europe. What else? Okay, construction. One of the things you mentioned, I've worked in the construction field as managing rail construction this century, with an incredible opportunity. And again, this is very important to the development of my book. I got the opportunity to work in a country called Qatar. You mentioned it as Qatar, and that's fine. A lot of people call it Qatar. Qatar is the proper name. I went to this country. It's like the size of Connecticut, sticks off of Saudi Arabia. I was very reluctant to go, and it was the most wonderful experience of my life. Found people to be incredibly friendly. But in truth, in Qatar, in United Arab Emirates, only 11% of the population is actually native Arab. 89% of the population is from other parts of the world. So it was very international. I got exposed to people from all over the world. I was there building a subway system that is, I believe, just recently completed. They wanted in time for the World Cup that Qatar is hosting in 2022. Wonderful experience. Felt safe. People warm and friendly. My experiences have also exposed me to all religions, Christian, Jewish, Islam, Hindu, Buddhism. And there's something good about all those people, about those religions. They're just wonderful.
In your book, Scott, you talk about the Chinese. I know you talk about European. Did you ever visit China?
I did. I did. We did. My wife and I have done these river cruises with Viking. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of them. I did a cruise in China from up the Yangtze River. And again, my encounter with the people there was overwhelmingly positive, incredibly friendly.
Good.
I can even say, in fact, there's a place I say in the book, with 3.4 billion people in China, they actually teach more English in China than in the United States.
Well, I can believe that.
Yes.
When did you get the idea to write your book?
Oh, that's a very good question. I got the idea. A friend of mine, one of the engineers I worked with, a civilian engineer that I worked with in the Coast Guard, recently wrote 2 outstanding books. One about his life growing up in Little Italy in downtown New York, and then another one that he wrote later on about murder in Tuscany. Excellent books, but what I found, and he got mad at me of this, and I'm so sorry, but I'm familiar with Italy, and I wanted to read about Tuscany, and he was focused on the story. He says he's described Tuscany, and I'm sure he did. I don't mean to question that, but it got me thinking, and whatever it took got me thinking. I said, if I write a book, I want to elaborate more on the surrounding aspects. And so for some reason, it struck me about the writing about going on the moon, which is, and I want to go a little bit on that too. And I have to backtrack a little bit. About 20 years ago, I've always been a sci-fi fan, a science fiction fan, Star Trek, the whole works. I actually wrote a script for Star Trek: The Next Generation. And they had it. They were going to use it. And then the show got canceled. So it never got produced. But that was pretty close there to my first adventure. So that was over 20 years ago. From there, so I'm in I'm a sci-fi type of person, but what I like is the real stuff. I'm not into the fantasy. I really wanted to get down, poor choice of words, down to earth. Okay, down to earth, down to moon, and talk about real stuff. So I had an idea for this book. I knew certain things because was watching what was going on in NASA. For example, growing plants on the International Space Station and what they plan to do on the moon. NASA has identified 19 species of plants that are prolific in converting carbon dioxide to oxygen, which takes a burden off of trying to do that mechanically. But on top of that, these same plants are also capable of detoxifying the air, which is from just what typical stuff that we breathe out and other things that are produced. These plants clean the air very efficiently. A lot of research was done on it. Very few people know about it. So I've tried to figure out how could I talk about this and make it interesting to people. And hopefully I did that. So I have a chapter in there that discusses the plants, growing the plants. And that's just one aspect of what's going to happen on the moon. There's a lot of minerals. There's water on the moon. It's there. It's in the form of ice. Water can be used to be converted to hydrogen for fuel. So there are minerals and ores that we can utilize to allow us to live extended periods on the moon. That we don't have.
You have said that Moonluck is classified as a science fiction book.
Yes.
Science fiction genre. But yet there's nothing fiction about science. And I think you've just pretty much kind of elaborated on that for us. I would like to also add that in the 1980s, the federal government had a project called Biosphere 2, and they did a lot of what you have just mentioned in terms of sustainability in an environment that was very much like the moon. So tell me about how you got to science fiction when really it's kind of a mashup of science and reality.
Well, that's a very good question. It's science and it's a fictional novel. So I guess that's how they brought the two together. It's also classified as a murder mystery. But truly that's it. As I tell everybody, there's nothing fictional about the science, as you said. I went to great lengths to make sure I did the research. I will say this. I tried very hard to reach out to various entities. I mentioned SpaceX, Blue Origin. These are real companies. ESA. The other thing. This is very important too. If I need to come back. It's not just NASA that's going. The space station is. It's a consortium of NASA, the European Space Agency, ESA, and SpaceX and Blue Origin. And so it's a joint venture operation to get there. So it's international. And as I mentioned before, my international experience, I brought that experience to be reflected in the various characters in my book. There's not just classic American, but I've got Hungarian, Greek, Italian, of course. I've got British. I've got quite a few countries covered.
Well, yes,
exposure to those people.
Moonluck involves characters from around the world.
Yes.
You were able to depict characters from Europe and China. Were you able to depict them with apparent confidence because you've traveled so much, or because did you use your knowledge from those countries to create these characters in Moonluck?
Absolutely. I think, I guess we talked about this a little bit off screen. The other thing about my book, and I have to keep giving these background things, but the other thing about my book is I want it to be as realistic as possible, as I said. And to go to the moon is going to involve a lot of people. It's not going to be done by just a few. There's a lot of characters in my book, at least 44. And if anybody reads it, just a heads up, there's a complete list of all the characters in the back of the book, along with a map and also a glossary of some of the terms. And almost every one of those terms are real. There are one or two exceptions, and you can tell right away. But to get back to that, yes. So using the international characters are based on people I've encountered. 24 of the characters in my book are based on real people in my life, whether it be here in the United States or that I met in Qatar or met in Italy or met maybe in China. So that I feel very confident that I have reasonably reflected those personalities from those countries.
So you portray humans as living on the moon within the next 10 to 20 years.
Yes.
Is that fiction, or is that something that you feel is pretty doable?
Absolutely doable. And again, I'll elaborate on that a little bit. In fact, there was just an article I saw in the news recently. There's a program called the Artemis program that NASA is working on, that they say they will have the technology and capability to take people to the moon for a sustained period as soon as 2024. That's 3 years from now. What's going to keep us from going there?
Money.
Politics and money. Let's face it. We went to the moon the first time because we had to beat somebody. We had to beat the Russians. We had to get up in space, and that we haven't had to do that for a while, so we haven't gone back.
Well, that leads us into a question from the audience.
Okay, what do we have?
The audience wants to know, would you say your book is a political thriller in terms of genre?
Let me say this. My book is incredibly upbeat, positive, for the exception of the murder. It's everybody else is very upbeat and positive, as you would expect for people that are going there for the first time. They're going to be selected, and for their psychological background as well as their technical background. I reflect China a very, very positive way. Now, granted, and I'll say this: you cannot judge people based on their governments. I've been around the world. I've been to China, I've been to Russia, I've been to Ukraine, I've been to down South America, I've been to Brazil and Argentina and many countries Indonesia. People are wonderful everywhere, everywhere. You get to know them one-on-one. You got to get, and like I said, when I first went to Qatar, I was reluctant. I didn't want to go, and got there and found out this is a wonderful place. Disregard what you hear in the news.
Well, but you portrayed Chinese astronauts, the taekwonauts,
Yes.
very favorably in your story.
Yes, I do.
So given what we here know about the Chinese treatment of the others, and other political actions coming out of China, is that really a fair portrayal of China?
I think it is, because you're talking about, as I said, 3.4 billion people. They don't all think the same. You can't judge the United States based on any particular governmental action right now. We all know we've been quite divided. Well, that's the same in China. They're going to have a space agency, and their goal, those people in that space agency want to do best for their country, for sure. But they're going to be just like us. They're going to want to be out there exploring, and they're going to love anybody else that's be exploring. Then that was in the basis of my book. And I don't want to reveal too much. It's not the intent to reveal the story, but the Chinese help us in that story. And
so what were your frustrations? Did you have frustrations while you were developing that book?
I did. I had frustrations because I tried to research from the very beginning. I want to do a lot of accurate portrayal of things, such as, and I'll give you an example. If somebody, as I said in the book, or I said in the intro, is if somebody is killed by another human on the moon, have they violated a law?
Is it murder?
Is it murder? I went to great extents to try to reach out to the United Nations. Not once did they ever respond back to me. Not once. I was fortuitous, and I found a friend who worked for a law firm and had some experience in that, and was able to give me some help. But the United Nations, I mean, I'm trying to do this research. No, didn't. And they pay the price in my story.
Okay, so right from the beginning, you tell readers that it will take 6 seconds for communications to get from the Earth to the moon and back. And that has to be from your civil engineering mathematics background. So is that accurate?
That is
Can we do it
very accurate.
Quicker? Can we do it better?
Of course, we can do it slightly better. The 6 seconds actually, it's the time it takes for the communication to get from the moon to the Earth and then back. So it's a 6-second round trip.
That is a very long time. So why should it be better?
Because I've allowed in there, the 6 seconds is based on some personal communications with something I call the J phone. That's an extrapolation of the iPhone. We're going to have the J phone in the future. Okay. That it has to go through. It still has to go through a process, so it's not instantaneous. As we know, we've had, even today, we have problems with communications, and people are garbled, and we lose communications. It's going to happen. That's not going to be perfected in 20 years. The communication. So part of that 6 seconds is a processing time, but it will still never be any better than 3.5 seconds. It will never, because that's physics.
So
that's how long it's going to take.
Rule to the 3.5 second rule.
Yeah. So I mean, it's absolutely going to take a minimum 3.5 seconds for communication to go round trip. Now, let me extrapolate from that. We've all seen some of the movies where they got to Mars, and I think the one with Matt Damon, excellent movie called The Martian, and they kind of alluded a little bit to the communication turnaround. And if you know that we're on the moon now, flying a helicopter, which has been historic. When that rover landed, I think it's called Perseverance. When that landed on the moon, on the Mars, and this is when Mars is really close to the Earth. It took, I think it was 17 minutes before they knew for sure from the time it touched down till they got the signal. 17 minutes.
Wow.
And
That doesn't seem like a very long time considering how far Mars is.
Well, wait until Mars in its orbit gets away from the Earth. So let's say we have people on Mars. There's going to be a point where it's going to be hours to get get a communication back and forth. 17 minutes is the soonest. So this is reality. And people said, "Oh, I will tell you." Some of the readers have said, "Oh, this is 6 seconds. This I don't like it," because they've seen too much Star Trek and other things where it's instantaneous communication. That's not real life. It's not going to happen.
We have a message from the audience, Scott, that is thanking you for your service.
Thank you.
And then we have a message from the audience that wants to know whose law is broken with the murder on the moon.
Aha! I could say you could read the book, but in actuality, I'm gonna reveal something. The question never gets answered.
Okay.
Spoiler.
So our audience member who asked that, he's not going to tell us.
No, but let me tell you what I do know is, had it been just a U.S. base, NASA, then you could apply what's called maritime law. By extrapolation, you can apply maritime law for the same reasons you can apply it to a ship at sea. The complication is that in my story, it's an international base station. So whose laws are going to be applied? Now, I allude to that in some depth in the story. At some point, there is an investigation being conducted by NASA's Inspector General, and it's a real entity, by the way. And they talk about it. So I won't reveal that part. But the truth is, they never have to answer the question, and I won't elaborate on that.
So you have earlier you elaborated a bit about the importance of growing plants in space, and especially on the moon, since that's what your book is about. Tell me more, and tell me the importance of having plant life on the moon.
Well, the importance is that it's going to take a burden off our need to support, what do I say, to bring in supplies, shall we say. If we got plants that are prolific in producing oxygen and detoxifying the air, then we don't have to have the equipment do that 100%. So
would they be growing their own food?
Absolutely. Oh, but only as a supplement. We're a long ways from in the 20 years, and my base station is 10 years old. It's already been there for 10 years when at the point the story takes place.
So when you have people there, do you envision, maybe this could be in the sequel, do you envision pets? Do you envision pets?
I can't believe it. Yes. Actually,
I'm going to have moon dogs.
I am planning a sequel, and there will be animals on the moon.
Wow. Do you see us going to Mars? It took perseverance a long time to get to Mars.
Yes,
do you see us going to Mars in the future? Do you see us sending humans to Mars?
The thing about, here's the thing. The moon is is much closer, relatively speaking, and we can do there. But the gravity is terrible. It's 1/6 of Earth, and there's absolutely no atmosphere. So we have to bring everything. We go to Mars, it's a little closer to an Earth environment, but it's a lot farther away.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be times when it's even, as I said, it'll be really far away. So it's a catch-22. Which one's the better environment to work with? Frankly, I see us going to both.
Is there
What-
water on both Mars and the moon?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Water.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There's already water on Mars. Yes, you already know that.
And do we know if it's on the moon?
Oh yes, there's water on the moon. Not a lot, but they know it. And with water, you can convert it, break it down to the oxygen and hydrogen, thus creating more oxygen, and hydrogen can be used as fuel. So they're very excited that there is, in fact, water on the moon.
It sounds like there's more science to this book than science fiction.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you mentioned the sequel. You got. I will say that in the sequel, although it will be based on the moon, I'll be talking about a crew that will be going to Mars at the same time.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit here too. Is this your first published book?
It is my first published book. Again, as I said, I did write a script. Unfortunately, didn't make it to the screen, but I've always had it in the back of my mind, and it's with all these experiences, and I'm glad I didn't try to write this sooner, simply because I was in Qatar just 5 years ago and got those incredible experiences, which so much made this book what it is. And of course, I do have my experiences in the Coast Guard, being on the Venturous, and things I did there. All these things come to make the book. So the book was at the right time in my life.
Scott, have you ever visited NASA?
I have all of NASA facilities up in Palmdale.
Have you ever been down to Cape Canaveral?
I have not been to Cape Canaveral, no.
So have you ever seen a live takeoff of a spaceship? I guess I'd call it, for lack of a better.
No, I have not. The only thing I have seen, and it's funny you should ask that. The only thing I've seen was one time I was skiing up in Mammoth Mountain, and I was just getting ready to start down the hill, and coming in from to land there at Edwards Air Force Base was a space shuttle on the back of a 747. Oh my God! And you had to be at the right time. I happened to be ready to go, facing the right direction, and that was so impressive.
And that space vehicle is not a little vehicle.
No, it stood out. And the 747, as everyone knows, is not a small aircraft. That space shuttle was huge on the back of it. It was impressive.
So, Scott, moon luck presents a burial of an astronaut on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that? Do you see then the moon having cemeteries too? Do you see the moon being very much like the Earth and having, other than highways?
Yeah. Are we going to bury people on the moon? Is that here? In truth, I know, I'm certain very few people know this. There is actually already human remains on the moon.
Really?
Yes, there is.
Who died? Who died on the moon?
He didn't die on the moon. He was a NASA scientist who loved his work. His name was Eugene Shoemaker, and he lived for NASA, from what I read. And to honor him, when he died, he was cremated and his ashes were taken to the moon. So we actually have a person there. Having said that, my story talks about burying an actual person, a full body on the moon.
Wow.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. People are going to die. Well, hopefully very, very few, but look at the pandemic. Nobody expected that. Okay. When it happens, and you can't bring them back, but I hope I did as best I could to honor a person that devoted their life and gave their life to live on the moon. I think I did it in a very special way. It's got a very, I think, a very special ending. I won't reveal it, but I'm very proud of what I came up with for to celebrate life.
The audience wants to know, and I'd like to ask the production booth if they could give me the question before the one I'm going to ask. The audience would like to know, is Moonluck a story of, is it a book about an ensemble cast of characters, or is there a main character? And would your sequel follow the same character or characters, or would you create new characters?
Okay, excellent questions. Again, there's always going to be some stars, and obviously, the commanding officer of the base station is predominant. There's a other senior officer on board, a woman that's based on a friend of mine from Hungary. She's not second in command, because that's the person, unfortunately, that passes away. Spoiler. But she's say third, and she's predominant in there. And by the way, women will be just as predominant there as men. I've got that well covered. But having said that, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, and that is, it takes more than one person to get to the moon. And I talk about not just the 30 people that are on the moon, but the people in NASA offices, in SpaceX office, in European Space Agency's offices in Darmstadt, Germany, and other some of the other locations that ESA has offices. I talk about all these people.
Well, we're getting some questions from the audience.
Well, you had one more question, and I think you asked about, do I take it into the sequel? And to some extent, yes, some characters will continue into the sequel because it's 2 years later. But you got to realize people on the moon will be rotating in and out. They won't be there so there will be some continuation of some of the characters.
Okay. So are you going to name the next book number 2? Is it going to be Moonluck 2, or are you going to something completely different?
I have
Scott's Odyssey.
Right now,
what are we going to have here?
It's going to be, right now, the name I've got in mind is What Happens on the Moon. ...
How fun is that?
And by the way, if anybody, people have questioned why I called it Moonluck. And if I can go back to that, if you don't mind.
No, I don't.
Moonluck, the reason for the name is and I came up with it well into writing it. I decided, or at some point I said something like, well, it's when something happens on the moon, it's not just going to be good luck. It's not going to be bad luck. It's just going to be good luck, or moon luck. So it's not good or bad. It's just going to happen.
It's just going to happen. Do you envision different countries with different laws on the moon and actually in other planets? We did have a question asking if you thought there was going to be life on Mars, and possibly we would be going to some of the moons on Jupiter. And do you think that countries with different laws on the moon are going to have the same political struggles we face here on the Earth? Those are
outstanding questions.
We're getting a lot of them
that are going to happen so far in the future. I'm not going to have to worry about it. But I think let's again, from my research, we've actually had treaties in place since 1969 that affect the moon and affect the space exploration we're doing now, the International Space Station, whatnot. There are treaties in place now. Of course, not every country signs them, and China is not part of them because back in '69 They weren't anticipated to be where they are today. But those treaties do have cover certain areas. Well, they didn't cover criminal aspects. What they covered was non-proliferation of weapons. Covered issues dealing with exploration. These were the issues that were covered at the time when they developed this. I see the future expanding on those laws or those treaties. I see, and as we get there, and as I said, humans being what they are, somebody's going to wind up doing something. We've already had one astronaut go through a divorce process while she was in space. I don't know if people know that. So that's not something they like to share, like get out there, but that actually has happened.
Are you interested in going to the moon, Scott?
I would have loved to in my youth. Absolutely, I would go. And I don't know, maybe I can still do it. Who knows? But in fact, in my sequel, because they're talking about this with the space station, to help fund it, they're going to sell tickets. And there will be people who will pay several millions of dollars to go to the space station, and I'm going to have that happen. I talk about it in Moonluck, and we'll have somebody in my sequel who will be some billionaire that paid for the right to go to the moon.
So isn't that very much like SpaceX selling a quick trip?
Yep.
For people who can have the financial resources?
Yep.
I don't know how many seats. Do you have any idea how many seats they have sold thus far?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't researched that at all. But I was aware of it, but not to that extent. But I only have one person going to the space station. I allude to it in the story in Moonluck, and in the sequel, I will have somebody on the moon that will be have paid their way.
Do you?
And of course, that will
have someone from the audience wants to know if you can read an excerpt from your book.
I'm actually scheduled to do that tomorrow. I'm going to do that.
You don't want to give them a preview?
Oh, I suppose I could. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. And by the way, one of the things I did want to do, I have some acknowledgments, and I do want to acknowledge a few people. If I can do that before I read.
No, why not?
Okay. A couple of friends, Jeff Volgert, who may or may not be listening. He was a sci-fi aficionado, and I consulted with him he read it and gave me some insights. He was very helpful in helping me go forward. So thank you, Jeff. Tim Lonicki, I mentioned I had problems getting any legal clarifications. Tim was the person that gave me some insights on where to go with the question of the legalities of being there. I also want to give a credit to a woman named Mary Musgrave. She was a plant physiologist, and it was her research that has taken NASA to the planet about growing plants in space. And I tried so hard to reach her, and unfortunately, I finally got a hold of an associate that told me she had passed away a few years ago. Very sad, but I so wanted to talk to her to get more in-depth research from her. But in fact, her assistant's name was Elena Hancock at the University of Connecticut, and she was the one that got me. So I've done my part. I mentioned some people, and there were a lot of others, but those are the ones that I mentioned in the book. But what I'll do is I'll read the prologue, if that's okay, or I think it's only one page. So basically, the way the prologue starts off, and every chapter starts off with a date. It'll tell you, and this is not, by the way, side note, I had to keep a spreadsheet to keep track of time. I had a keep track of the lunar day and night, so that if anybody goes and tries to look, if I say it's bright out, and they go say, I'm going to go check, they're going to find out I said it correctly. So I had to do this by using a spreadsheet. So I'm reading from the prologue. It's 28 March 2039 in the evening, New York, USA, Earth. Breaking news. This is WNN, World News Network. That's made up. In an event that has shocked the nation and the world, NASA reported that an explosion occurred on the moon-based station Venturus late last night. One astronaut was reportedly killed in the explosion. No one else was killed or injured. The cause of the explosion is unknown at this time and is being investigated. The name of the astronaut that was killed has been withheld until notification of the next of kin. NASA, a member of the International Joint Venture Moon Exploratory Team, or MET, that operates the station, said that the explosion occurred in one of the maintenance modules of the Venturus, resulting in a depressurization of the module. Standard safety measures in place at the time confined the loss of air pressure to just one module. No other portion of the base station was affected. MET's mission director, Kurt Vaughn, is reported to have saying that it did not appear that the astronaut caused the explosion. Rather, it was unfortunate that one astronaut was in the module at the time. In response to questions, Vaughn stated that in its 10-year history of safe operation on the moon, there had been no other incident, not even a bad scratch, prior to yesterday's explosion. MET implements extensive and redundant measures to keep its astronaut community safe and well. The loss of one of its own has been devastating to NASA, the European Space Agency, MET's other agency partner, to SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Lockheed Martin. Those are MET's corporate partners. News of the event has spread around the world as people from many countries expressed their sorrow, and the White House said later today that the president will address ...
Okay, you know what? We've just about knocked out an hour. How about that, buddy?
I didn't think we'd make it.
How exciting. How exciting for you and I to be the first author of the hour team.
Oh, I'm so honored.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Any more questions out there?
We do have one more question, but we're running in the time here.
Okay.
Okay. The question was that this person is very excited for your book. They're very excited for you, and they wanted to know, to make it very brief, Scott, what the most challenging part of the writing process was for you on this particular book.
The research was easy. Unfortunately, the frustrations were trying to get other entities to do it, but the research was all done online. Fantastic. We are in a great the state of the art today. It's great. But the frustration, I think I saved myself. I had my book entirely outlined, 11-page outline before I started writing a single word.
No, that was
pretty much adhered to it. So that saved me a lot because I knew what I had to do. So the only true frustrations was trying to get some research done. Oh, and getting it published. I should mention that. I did self-publish. It took me longer to go through that process than writing the book.
Okay, it takes a long time to write an outline of a book than to go back in to write the book. Mm-hmm. Our first author of the hour today was Wayne Scott Harral. The book is Moon Luck. I am assuming, Scott, it's available on Amazon.
Yes, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, I think.
I think this has been just a lot of fun. I thank the audience for participating, and encourage you to visit the 150 booths that are in the Festival of Storytellers. There's 150 authors, and don't forget Scott's game in his booth, and you can win one of those hats. And a book.
Mm-hmm.
There's 150 authors who are showcasing their books and their works in their booth, and 41 more additional Author of the Hour sessions between this weekend, today, tomorrow, and Sunday, and next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm going to take a quick second here to plug my own booth, Generations of Good Food, and my Author of the Hour is next Friday from 3 to 4 Eastern Daylight Time. I think, Scott, this has been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, obviously, for the audience because they've come back and have asked questions. And thank you for your service, as was said.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Do you have any final words you'd like to add?
Yes, I do. I want to thank ReadersMagnet. They've done an excellent job. I was like many things. I was leery at first in dealing with something I didn't know, and they've been incredible. So I do thank them from that. Ellie, I want to thank you very much for participating. I'll say, I know you say it's gazzetta, but proper Italian would be gaccetta. We talked about that earlier.
You live with a real Italian.
And I did buy your book, by the way, because it's Italian food. Got to have it. So,
you know what, Scott, for those of you in the audience, Scott and I have been in contact with each other a couple of times over the past week. And Scott and his family are very, very interesting. He's had an incredibly interesting life. And I think we've put together a great Author of the Hour for everyone to follow, Scott. It's been a lot of fun. I thank you so much for writing your book. I think for those of us that write, we're always amazed. I'm always amazed. My book, of course, is very much a memoir. It's very much almost a journal of how I took care of my mother over 9.5 years. Hopefully, it's kind of a snapshot into the stages and challenges and the changes as people age. But your book is somewhat of a fiction and somewhat of a reality. And I think trying to combine the reality and not make it a real book and trying to make up characters, but characters of Chinese taekwonauts who, when you've been to China and you know the people, is pretty interesting.
Thank you. I'd like to just say, for all of us, I think all these authors that are going to be seen in the next few days, this is a passion. We're expressing our passion. We're not doing this for the money. I don't know if I'll. I don't think I'll be making any money, but I love it. I would do it again.
I would too.
Given away more books, more copies than I've sold, I think. And I love it. I just, and I think to my friends, I'm sorry. I apologize now that I forced you to read them.
Yeah, well, people are asking where it is, and I'm assuming it's available on Amazon like the rest of our books.
Ebook and printed.
Good. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our first Author of the Hour for the Festival of Storytellers. I thank you for joining us. I invite you to come back to all the rest of us and visit ours. Scott's going to be a panelist in another session over the next few days, and you can tune back in to Scott as well. I thank you. Stay safe.
Okay. Oh, one last thing. If there's any questions,
Scott, one last thing. You got 50 seconds.
If there are any questions that weren't answered, they can be emailed to me through the booth.
Good. Anybody's got some more questions, email Scott through his booth. If you have any questions for myself, you can email me through my booth. Thank you. Stay safe.
All right.
Bye for now.
Ciao. Ci vediamo.